From claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt.
EWTN Radio presents The Miracle Hunter with Michael O'Neill.
Welcome to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Well, everyone, we've got a big interview for you today. I think I always get excited when we have stories of miracles happening here in the United States. There have been less than 30 that have happened to Americans that have led to the canonization of American saints and those around the world. And we've got an interview today with Dr. Anthony Dardano, who was the person who investigated the case related to St. Titus Brandsma. This was Father Michael Driscoll. We've had him on the show before talking about his cure from melanoma. We'll get the doctor's perspective this time. This is a fascinating case and one that was approved by Rome that led to a canonization. So we're so excited to talk to Dr. Anthony Dardano from Florida with us today. We'll also be chatting with Shaun McAfee. He's coming out with a great new book, All Things Catholic, a guide from A to Z from Sophia Institute Press. As we know, I like doing the trivia on this show, Catholic Pub Trivia. This book has so many things in it, fascinating pieces of information that you won't know about your Catholic faith, to check this one out. So All Things Catholic, we'll be talking with Shaun later in the program. And check out my series, They Might Be Saints, which airs every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. This week we'll be looking at the Father Augustus Tolton episode, and that's one of my favorites that we did. I examined the sainthood case of the first black priest in American history, Venerable Augustus Tolton, who overcame tremendous challenges both inside and outside the Catholic Church, and he's got that Chicago connection. So, of course, I'm interested in his story in a special way. So check that one out. They Might Be Saints, Father Augustus Tolton, on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out my other series, Explore with the Miracle Hunter, Tre Fontana. Then I investigate a miraculous encounter at a site where St. Paul was martyred. The Virgin of Revelation's appearance to Bruno Carnacchiola, a rabid anti-Catholic, changed both the man and the church itself. Tre Fontana is the name of that episode, and it's one that's not very well known, but one of the greatest conversion stories in history, in my opinion. So check that one out and Explore with the Miracle Hunter. And of course, that's every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And later in the show, we'll be looking at the 365 Days with Mary project. For this week, Our Lady of the Apparition from Palestrina in Italy in the year 1716, and the Might-Be Saint of the Day, Blessed Frederick Jansone, who lived from 1838 to 1916 in France. And the Miracle of the Day, Teresa Chun was a Korean woman who was diagnosed with a brain tumor and was cured on August 4th, 1981 by Our Lady of Akita in Japan. We'll tell you about that story later in the show. And the question of the week, can stigmata or bilocation be used as a miracle for canonization? I'll try to answer that one later in the show. Let's take a look at miracle news. We do this every week where we talk about the miracles happening around the world and those things that relate to miracles. Well, we have a streak that's broken here. For the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've been announcing some of the decisions coming out of the dicastery there in Rome related to the new norms that came out on May 17th. They've been applying these norms. They have a huge backlog of cases all throughout the world of alleged Marian apparitions and other miracles. And so each and every week we've seen at least one of those decisions being made public, and we don't have one this week. So the streak is broken, but I'm quite sure we'll be seeing more. But in the meantime, we have a decision coming from Rome. The Vatican has authorized a new Marian feast for England and Wales, and that relates to Our Lady of Walsingham, which is the great Marian apparition from England. And I was there just a year ago, and we filmed an episode of Explore with the Miracle Hunter, which will be coming out shortly. And so the Vatican has granted permission for Our Lady of Walsingham to be celebrated as a new feast in the dioceses of England starting this year on September 24th, which is the traditional feast day. And Cardinal Arthur Roche, the prefect for the dicastery for divine worship and the discipline of the sacraments, wrote to Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the president of the Bishop Conference, in response to the request last year that the memorial of the Blessed Virgin Mary of Walsingham be raised to the rank of feast. He explained that normally it wouldn't be moved, but an exception would be made. He said, quote, "Given the historic importance of this shrine for the Church in England and Wales, dating back just over 1,000 years, and given the growing devotion to Our Lady of Walsingham, to which you attest, the dicastery has decided that by way of exception, your request may be granted." End quote. The Shrine of Our Lady of Walsingham was established in 1061, according to the text of the Pinson Ballad, where the devout woman Richeldes de Favershey asked in prayer for inspiration that she could carry out the special work to honor Our Lady. And this ballad says that Our Lady appeared to Richeldes and showed her in spirit the house of the Annunciation, where the angel greeted Mary in Nazareth, and asked her to build a replica in Walsingham as a perpetual memorial to the Annunciation. And Cardinal Roche said he hoped that the new feast would strengthen the faithful. May this yearly celebration be a source of renewal, grace, and evangelical endeavor of the Church in England and Wales. As imitating Mary, the faithful may evermore become disciples of her Son, receive the message of the gospel, treasure it in their hearts, and reflect on it in their minds. End quote. And this feast will be in the national calendar for England, as the National Marian Shrine in Wales is, as is the others. And the text for this Mass, the lectionary, and the Liturgy of the Hours may be found on the official website, and the Vatican has authorized this for England and Wales. So that was a very special place to visit just a year ago, and I encourage people to check out the new episode of Explore with the Miracle Hunter, where we look at Walsingham, coming soon on EWTN television. Let's take a look at Catholic Pub Trivia. We do this every week where we ask a trivia question, give out a prize to an emailer that writes in with the fastest and the right answer. People who know me know that I love trivia, and you might find me in a bar on some night playing pub trivia, but this is Catholic Pub Trivia, and so we'll see who knows the answer. Last week we asked the question, which new blessed martyr is being proposed as a new patron saint of photographers? And that answer, we're talking about St. Veronica, who is the official patron saint of photographers, but there can be multiple ones. And the answer to this question is Blessed Joseph Ulma. And you might recognize the Ulma family name. Those were the martyrs from Poland, who the whole family was martyred and beatified together. But Blessed Joseph was known for his photography, so it's possible that there is a proposal anyway that he be considered as one of the patron saints of photography. So thanks to everyone who wrote in with that answer. Now this week we're talking about St. Titus Brandsma and the miracle that was found here in Florida in the United States that led to his canonization. And the question for this week is, what country was St. Titus Brandsma born in? Again, what country was St. Titus born? What was St. Titus born in? If you think you know that answer and want to win the prize, the image of the faces of Mary, send me an email to questions@miraclehunter.com, and maybe you'll be the one who wins that prize. Answers and winners will be posted on the show page on miraclehunter.com. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about Shaun McAfee and his great new book, All Things Catholic. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. People who tune into this show know that I love talking about trivia, or Catholic pub trivia, as we like to call it on this show. And we're always looking for those little tidbits where Catholicism intersects with the world, and all those interesting and fascinating ways, those special words we have, the lexicon of Catholicism that we know in our practice of the faith, and we might not know. And for those things we might not know, there's a great new book that's out. It's called All Things Catholic, A Guide from A to Z, and it's from author Shaun McAfee, and it's out from Sophia Institute Press. We welcome back to the program today, Shaun McAfee.
Thank you. Good to be on. Yours is one of my favorite, Michael.
Oh, thank you, Shaun. And I enjoy your books, and I was excited about this one that came out, partly because maybe it will give me some fodder for new Catholic Pub Trivia questions, but also I think it's a really great comprehensive guide definitive desktop volume of more than 260 Catholic topics featured from A to Z, which is a fun way to organize for all ages. And in the book, you've got definitions of the different teachings, practices, people, and resources for people who want to find out more about all the different things in this guide from A to Z. What inspired you to put this book together, All Things Catholic?
Well, I've been a Catholic for about 12 years now, and I haven't really been shy about sharing my story. And as I've grown, closer with folks in the different parishes that I've been around, also within the Archdiocese of the military services and just online, I've realized there are a lot of people asking the same questions. And I've referred them to other wonderful books, other authors like Scott Hahn or podcasts. But I find myself answering the same questions to, personal friends or even strangers. And I really wanted to give them something that would be useful for them to kind of brush up on their church doctrine or just a concept that they hadn't heard of. Maybe they heard it in a homily, and give them something to get them started and keep going with. So the book's layout is it's definitive. We provide a definition, and we explore, the church's magisterial teachings on the topic. So it could be anything from yoga to the laity or liturgy or novenas. We got just a bunch of different topics in the book, and the reader can go ahead and read those. There's a Catholic tip on almost all of these to give kind of a personal touch on how to apply something or maybe even think of something a little bit differently that they were familiar with before. And then there's further reading, because I, of course, don't want anybody just to read my book. I want them to go and learn everything the church has to offer about a certain subject. So that was really the impetus here.
Great. We're talking today with Shaun McAfee about all things Catholic. This is a great new book. And I love in the book also that there are ways, you give people ways to defend important Catholic teachings in your daily life, because that does come up with coworkers and family members. People have questions about all the strange and interesting things of Catholicism, and it's great to have those answers. And if you're willing, if you've got the book with you, I'd love for you to pick a letter from the alphabet. Pick a letter, maybe your favorite one, if there is a favorite letter, and tell us a few of the things that are featured in this letter to give people a sense of what things are featured in your book.
Okay, Michael. So my name is Shaun. Of course, it starts with an S. And so I'll go with S.
I was going to pick M for the same reason, so great.
Yep. So this will come for, this is actually one of the largest sections in the books, because there's just a whole lot to teach on S's. Unlike Z, I think we had one, and that was zeal. So in here, I'll just kind of start at the beginning of sacraments, sacramentals. There is a big difference there. Sacred art, Sacred Heart of Jesus, sacrifice, sacrilege. That's an important one. Saints, salvation, salvation history. A little bit of a tie-in there. Those are fun. Scandal. That's important. Science, that one's important. How does the church teach a difference between, the fides et ratio? How does the church treat faith versus reason? Or can they cohabitate? That was a fun one to explore and write. Separation of church and state. Yeah, we've got a lot of topics in here that folks are probably like, I wouldn't expect that to be in a Catholic dictionary, but I want to know what the church has to say about that. We've also got sin, soul, Stations of the Cross. That's one of my favorites. Stewardship, stigmata. That was a cool one. Suffering, definitely a central Catholic concept. Suicide. How does the church talk about those who have mental illnesses or, dealing with that, especially those who are survivors of suicide? We got the Summa Theologiae, discuss Thomas Aquinas' masterwork, and then Synod, which seems to be a very important topic these days. We included a lot of topics like that, like I said earlier, you won't find in a typical Catholic dictionary, but a good percentage of the topics in here are topics that are important right now, and they probably will be for the next generation. They're not going away. So we explore those in this book.
Wonderful. We've been talking about the book, All Things Catholic, a guide from A to Z by author Shaun McAfee, who is joining us on today's program. And as you mentioned, I think that the types of topics are an incredible breadth of some of the basic things that we see in the practice of the faith to new things that are new topics that are getting more attention, current issues in the discussion of faith. So I think that's important both for the old and the new. And when you look at this book, or perhaps others, family and friends who have seen this book, or people who have written into you to your website, ShaunMcAfee.com, who have experienced this book, tell a little bit of the feedback that people, how are people using this book?
Okay, so one thing I've heard consistently is they love the Catholic tips. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I didn't really dive into it. So my aim is not to just have people understand the jargon of the church. That's important, especially when you want to understand the church's magisterium or explain something to a friend or coworker. But it's way more important, I feel, to apply these things to your life. So what about this big word, parousia, which is the church's word for the second coming? Mm-hmm. We talk about it at Advent, and of course we talk about it at Lent. But there's a spiritual element that can transform our lives by having a better appreciation for it. So throughout the book, we've dotted it with these Catholic tips, and they are absolutely the highlight of the feedback that I've received. One piece, and I don't consider it critical feedback. A lot of people are already requesting a second edition. They want more topics added. Some people have, said they want things like Divine Mercy Sunday added, and maybe we can go into Divine Mercy on that, which I think is already covered in the book. But those are really two of the more interesting pieces of feedback that I've gotten. Otherwise, for uses, a lot of people are using this. I just got an email yesterday from another actual radio host. He said he's going to use it in his homeschool curriculum with his kids, which I was very overjoyed to hear. I have 6 of my own, and we homeschool. And I just can't wait for the day when, I've got a couple that are probably old enough to start thumbing through this kind of thing. But to have it as a constant resource, on the desk of a homeschooler would be cool. I also envision this book for RCIA, OCIA people who are coming into the church, not really sure what a certain topic is, or, they might have quickly gone past it and their study, and they didn't get the opportunity to ask a question. Well, this book has those answers. So I'd say this book is perfect for a myriad of different types of Catholics and non-Catholics as well, those who are hoping to understand what the real teachings of the Catholic Church are. I mean, a lot of people have presumptions, or they heard it on some sort of social media, that the church says this or that, but turns out it actually doesn't, or they're skewed and misaligned. So this book can hopefully correct some of those errors for folks on the outside.
Absolutely. We've been talking about All Things Catholic, a guide from A to Z, a new book out from Shaun McAfee and Sophia Institute Press. And as you mentioned, this book could be a great resource for Catholic school students, catechists, RCIA, anyone trying to understand more about the Catholic faith, or needing a tool to talk about these interesting topics intelligently. And so for people who want to pick up the book, Shaun, what's the best place that people can learn more about it, or learn more about you as the author?
I would, if they want to learn more about the book and me, they should go to SophiaInstitute.com. This book was produced by Sophia Institute Press. Of course, you can go to nearly any Catholic website that sells books and grab this one, like Catholic Company or something. But I personally, I would drive people to their local Catholic bookstore. Those are the backbone of the economy, small businesses, and they support families. So go there first, ask for 50 copies, buy them all up, and send them to your friends.
And for people who want to learn more about you, Shaun, I know you have a website or a place that you manage as well.
Yes, I'm at ShaunMcAfee.com, which is it's more of I use it for personal blogging, of course, and it's more like a static site for just information about me. But I also run EpicPew.com, which is a really fun little website. It takes about 40 seconds to read through an article there. And it's kind of like just, nitpicky highlights that are going on within the Catholic Church and fun topics.
Wonderful. Well, we're so grateful to you, Shaun McAfee, for putting together this book, All Things Catholic, a guide from A to Z, a new book out from Sophia Institute Press. Thank you so much, Shaun, for joining us on today's program.
Thank you, Michael. See you next time.
God bless. And that was Shaun McAfee, the author of the brand new book, All Things Catholic, a guide from A to Z from Sophia Institute Press. I encourage people to check this one out. I think it's a fun one for people of all ages, Catholics and non-Catholics alike, looking to learn what the Catholic Church teaches and all the strange and interesting things that we'd love to have more details on. Shaun puts it all together in a great book where we get the rules to live by within Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism, in answer to some of the most common and interesting questions that we have, both from Catholicism throughout the ages. and in today's world. And people can go to sophiainstitute.com or ShaunMcAfee.com for more information. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be looking at the question of the week. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Each week we get questions from people writing in from around the world, questions about miracles happening in today's world and those that have happened centuries ago. I love getting the email questions, and I also like getting the questions in person. I travel around the country and give as many as 20 talks a year, different Catholic parishes, shrines, or events. And I always talk for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I open it up for questions. And it's always kind of fun to see what people are thinking about, what questions are on people's mind, and hopefully I have the answer. And for people who want to invite me to speak at your parish or event, you can go to my website, miraclehunter.com, and you can click on the Contact tab, and you can send me a message that way and invite me to your parish, and maybe I'll be speaking somewhere in your area sometime soon. So the question for this week is a good one. It's from Jean. She says, "Dear Miracle Hunter, can stigmata or bilocation be used as a miracle for canonization?" And that's a great question from Jean. Of course, we talk a lot about saints on this show, and we know that according to the new norms or the new rules set up by Pope John Paul II in 1983, which changed it from 2 to 4 miracles for beatification and 2 to 4 miracles for canonization, it has been trimmed down to 1 miracle needed for canonization or beatification and a subsequent miracle needed for canonization. So it's been now 2 miracles. And so, but in talking to all the causes for saints all throughout the United States, finding miracles is quite difficult because of all the modern medical diagnoses and treatment. And so I think that it still remains a challenge to find miracles. So the question from Jean was, can stigmata or bilocation be used as a miracle for canonization? And we have a number of cases here in the United States even where there have been stigmatics and their causes are up for sainthood. We have these cases, of course, Rhoda Wise out of Canton, Ohio, or others in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. We have another case of stigmatic being proposed for sainthood. But does that stigmata qualify as one of those 2 miracles that are needed? And the answer is no. I'm quite sure that gets written up quite well in the positio or sainthood file that the candidate had the stigmata, but it doesn't count as a miracle for canonization. We might say, well, why is that anyway? That seems pretty miraculous to bear the wounds of Christ, or to bilocate, or to levitate, or any other kind of strange phenomena that seems downright miraculous, or being a thaumaturgist, a fancy Greek word meaning a miracle worker, like Solanus Casey. Many miracles were attributed to him while he was alive. So that's the key thing, is that these cases of stigmata, bilocation, levitation, miracle working, it's all while the person was alive. And the miracles used for canonization only can be after the person has died, because it shows that the person is in heaven with God. And so if those miraculous things happened while the person was on earth, it doesn't have that same connection. And so thanks, Jean, for your question. So all the miracles that are considered for canonization are always cases that have happened after the potential saint's death. So thanks for your great question. If you have a question for the Miracle Hunter, you can send me an email to miraclehunter or questions@miraclehunter.com, and maybe I'll be answering your question on the air next week. Let's take a look at the 365 Days with Mary project. We do this every week, where we look at the Marian devotion that lines up exactly to the day's date. We all know Fatima, May 13th, or Lourdes, February 11th, or Guadalupe, December 12th. But believe it or not, there's a different Marian devotion that lines up to each and every day of the calendar year. It might be a feast day, the occurrence of a miracle might be the building of a basilica, or other way that we can remember Mary under her many titles from around the world. And so for today's date, we've got Our Lady of the Apparition from Palestrina in Italy in the year 1716. And the story goes that on Tuesday, August 4th in 1716, on the feast of St. Dominic, about 6 o'clock in the morning, a 14-year-old boy named John Di Pasquale Scarpa, while on his way to the parish church to bring communion to 3 sick people, saw a strange woman wearing a long blue dress, embroidered red stars, and a white veil. She encouraged him to pray for souls in purgatory and have masses said for them. And she touched his left wrist, reassuring him for a moment, and the parish priest was impressed by the boy's detailed account and welcomed the donations he collected for the masses to be said for the deceased. And that is Our Lady of the Apparition from Palestrina in Italy in the year 1716. For more information on 365 Days with Mary, you can go to the website 365dayswithmary.com. You can download the free app, Marian Calendar 365 Days with Mary from the Apple App Store. Or you can connect to the Facebook page and connect with any of the 10,000 other followers who get a different devotion of Mary on their Facebook feed each and every day of the calendar year. Let's take a look at the Miracle of the Day. This is a segment we've been doing this year where we talk about miracles from around the world that relate to the day's date. And you might know of this case of Akita in Japan. It was not an apparition of the Virgin Mary, but the visionary Agnes, who was a nun there, she witnessed a bleeding 3-foot-high wooden statue, which also cried 101 times, according to the other witnesses and scientists who looked at it. This is a Buddhist wood carver who created an image of the Lady of all Nations. And according to the story, the account, the Virgin Mary also delivered 3 messages via locution, I guess you might say, to Sister Agnes. And so this was actually approved by Bishop John Shijiro Ito from the Diocese of Niigata in Japan, and that was actually approved as a supernatural event, the statue weeping 101 times with these messages that were received by Sister Agnes. And this is one of the most remarkable cases of a modern miracle that we have. And so the connection to today's date, on August 4th, 1981, Teresa Chun, a Korean woman diagnosed with a brain tumor, she placed an image of Our Lady of Akita under her pillow and prayed for a miraculous healing. And on this date in 1981, the tumor was found to have disappeared, and the healing was well documented by Father Joseph O. of Seoul and the other medical authorities who were there. So this is the miracle of the day, the healing of a brain tumor of Teresa Chun. Let's take a look at They Might Be Saints. We do this every week where we talk about those people on the path to sainthood. We're talking from miracle workers to martyrs to those ordinary people living extraordinary lives of heroic virtue. These are the people that make us wonder if someday they might be saints. And of course, we're talking about venerables, blessed, servants of God, those people who are on the path to canonization, but don't quite have all their miracles yet to be recognized by Rome. And of course, this connects with my television series, They Might Be Saints, which airs every week on EWTN on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Or you can pick up my book by the same title, They Might Be Saints. You can get that one from EWTN Religious Catalog. And so we always try to keep you up to date with the saints who are coming down the pipeline. So on Thursday, June 20th, Pope Francis received in audience His Eminence Cardinal Marcello Semeraro, the prefect for the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints. Now, during this audience, the Pope authorized this dicastery to promulgate a decree regarding the heroic virtues of the servant of God, Vincenta Guilarte Alonso, who was a professed nun of the Congregation for the Daughters of Jesus, born on January 21st, 1879 in Rojas de Bureba in Spain, and she died in Leopoldina in Brazil on July 6th in 1960. Now, according to the Dicastery for the Cause of Saints website, she was a professed nun of the Congregation of the Daughters of Jesus. She was admired and sought after by the faithful for her Christian testimony. She dedicated herself mainly to people in situations of weakness, poverty, and illness, and always maintained a charitable and cordial attitude with the sisters who found in her a close, affectionate, and understanding person, always ready to comfort those in difficulty. And so that is now Venerable Vincenta Guilarte Alonso. And with one miracle, she will be declared Blessed Vincenta. If we look at the Might Be Saint of the Day for today's date, August 4th, today's memorial is for Blessed Frederick Janson, who lived in France from 1838 to 1916. He was born on November 19th in Geisveld Nord in France, and he was the youngest of 13 children in a wealthy farm family, and Frederick grew up in France, but his language at home was Flemish. His father died when the boy was 9. Now, Frederick felt an early call to the priesthood, and he entered his junior seminary, but dropped out to become a traveling salesman. He worked to support his family. Now, his family obligations finally were fulfilled. Frederick joined the Franciscans in his early 20s, and he was ordained in 1870. He became a military chaplain during the Franco-Prussian War, and he was assigned to the Holy Lands. He rebuilt the Stations of the Cross in the streets of Jerusalem. I've seen those. And he built a church in Bethlehem and negotiated agreements between Roman, Greek, and Armenian church authorities about the use of sanctuaries in Jerusalem. He traveled to Canada in 1881 on a fundraising trip, but returned to stay in 1888, where he worked for the next 28 years. He helped develop the shrine of Our Lady of Notre Dame du Cap in Quebec and witnessed the vision of a statue of Mary opening its eyes. He wrote biographies of the saints, newspaper articles, and calling on his childhood training, sold religious books door to door, including thousands of copies of his manual for the Third Order. His work effectively reestablished the Franciscan secular order in Canada. And so he died on August 4th, 1916, in the Franciscan Infirmary in Montreal, Quebec. He died of stomach cancer. And that is Blessed Frederic Janson. With one miracle, he will be known as Saint Frederic. And check out my series, They Might Be Saints. You can go to the website for more information on They Might Be Saints. Go to theymightbesaints.com. You can check out the episode related to Father Augustus Tolton. This Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll be examining the sainthood cause of the first black priest in American history, Venerable Augustus Tolton, who overcame tremendous challenges both inside and outside of the Catholic Church. Check that one out. They Might Be Saints, Father Augustus Tolton, this Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Dr. Anthony Dardano about the miracle that was validated for the canonization of St. Titus Brandsma. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. People who tune into this show or to my television program, which airs on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Central Time, they know that I like to talk about saints, and American saints specifically, and most specifically, future saints, those people on the path to sainthood. I think the process is so fascinating, how people move along from servant of God to venerable to blessed and then to saint. And as we've talked about many times on this show or on the television series, we know that one miracle is required to move along from venerable, that is having the life of heroic virtue, to blessed, or in the case of a martyr, they start at blessed, and then with one more miracle, they advance from blessed to saint. And we had a miracle from the United States not too many years ago now. I think it was in 2018 that that miracle was announced related to the Dutch priest, Blessed Titus Brandsma. And his heroic death in a Nazi concentration camp was recognized, that led to him being declared a martyr by Rome. But there was a Florida priest who said that Brandsma's intercession led to a miraculous healing from cancer. And I think we've had Father Michael Driscoll on this program recently, and he's talked a little bit about how he found him to be bold and brave, and he was inspired to pray to just that one saint. And what's fascinating about sainthood causes, of course, is that theoretically you could pray to many people who are saints, but for something to be recognized by Rome, you have to direct all your prayers and all the prayers of your family and friends to just that one saint. So you have to find a connection to that future saint and pray to them. So it's quite remarkable that any kind of a miracle is ever found because of this. And so we know that Father Driscoll was diagnosed with advanced melanoma, and he went through the whole medical evaluation. And we have the doctor with us today. His name is Dr. Anthony Dardano. He's the professor of medicine at Florida Atlantic University, and an associate dean at Delray Hospital. And we're so excited to talk about this case that led to Titus Brandsma being declared a saint by Rome. Welcome to the program today, Dr. Anthony Dardano.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here.
It's wonderful to have you, and I think that this is these cases are so fascinating. I think there's something like 29 or 30 cases in the United States that where we've seen miracles from Americans that have led to the canonization of Americans and others like Titus Brandsma from around the world. And so my question for you is, this is a big deal for you to have been brought in and give your medical analysis. How did you first get contacted or become aware of the case of Father Michael Driscoll?
Well, thank you. First thing, I'm a parishioner, and Father Michael's been my priest in my parish since I've been in Florida for the last 20 years. So he was our pastor, then he was Carmelite Provincial, and he remained in the pastor, came back after his surgery, and right now he's still in residence at our church. So I know Father Michael very well. And when it came about that it was really necessary to have some medical testimony in this, Father Michael turned to me and says, can you do this? And, of course, this isn't just, this needs the bishop and everybody involved with the diocese to agree with this. So it came about that I agreed to do this, and our bishop, Bishop Barbarito, and I had an opening ceremony where all of the documents were presented and actually petitioned off to Rome, and they accepted it. Now, the amazing thing is, since I've known Father Michael, he had an advanced melanoma. And back 20 years or so ago, even a little more than that now, there was no cure for that. There was no treatment. There was nothing. So he went to Boston, actually, for the surgery. And they told him at the time, Father, the most we can offer you is 3 years. And he went and he had the surgery, and he did have one dose of radiation, but it's not very good for this, and he had nothing else, no chemotherapy that wasn't available, nothing. And he continued with his follow-up. He did quite well, and he went for 10 years back and forth to Boston. And finally, after 10 years and after numerous scans and things, they said, Father, we're going to pronounce you cured, and we have no scientific explanation for your cure. Well, Father Michael says, well, I do. We had an intercession. Now, Father Titus Brandsma was a Carmelite priest in our parish. And Father Michael, he was kind of a hero. This was a hero of his. So he said, you know what, I'm going to ask for his intercession. And he went to the bishop, and the bishop says, you can put prayer cards in all the parishes in our diocese, wherever you want to, and people will pray specifically to Titus Brandsma for your intercession and for your healing. And this is what took place. Now, after this was done and we decided, we're going to go on further with this, and Rome accepted it, I, along with our diocesan clergy people, the bishop's secretary, and diocesan, what they call propagator of the faith in these different areas, we had to interview all of the people that were involved. I had to interview patients, friends of his, people who knew him, and testified that they only prayed to St. Titus. Now, people, when they pray, they shotgun, Father, pray for me, St. Anthony, St. Jude, St. Francis, a whole bunch of, we had to make sure that you only prayed to St. Titus Brandsma for this. And I had to participate in all of those interviews, but I also had to do the medical work in this. I had to review every single office visit for the 10 years that he had in Boston, look at all of his path reports, all of the CAT scans in those days. They didn't have much more than that CAT scan. But all of the progress along the way to prove that there was no recurrence. About 1 or so years before we were finally done, he did have a little bit of an irritation in the site. And he said, it's back. Because melanoma is one of those diseases, they tell you it never leaves you. It kills you eventually. So I said, it's back. So my son happens to be a reconstructive surgeon. And I says, my son, who's also a good friend of Father Michael, says, I'm going to operate you, and we're going to remove it, and we're going to prove that there was no recurrence of the tumor. So we did. Again, all of the path reports from my son's surgery went off to Rome. We started all over again with my testimony and proved that there absolutely was no recurrence, and he's definitely cured of the process.
Amazing.
At which time we were notified by Rome they accepted this, and off we went. I was very privileged with my son and to go to Rome. And also, out of interest, the original surgeon who operated on him some 20 years ago up in Boston, he flew to Rome also for the canonization process, which was remarkable.
Wonderful. We've been talking today with Dr. Anthony Dardano, who is involved in the case of the miracle of Father Michael Driscoll relating to the canonization of St. Titus Brandsma. And to my knowledge, and I studied this quite a bit, that this is the only case where you have a father and son medical team who perhaps were involved in the investigation of a potential miracle. So I think that's a fun fact.
It was a fun fact. And, we just had, of course, his feast day was a few days ago, July 27th. And last year, because we went to the canonization a couple of years ago, but last year we had the first anniversary Mass, and the bishop was here at our parish to celebrate the Mass. And I was alone with the bishop, and I said, Bishop, you and I have done something that very few people in this earth are privileged to do. And beside that, we're alive, both of us, to see this come to fruition. Because in church history, sainthood doesn't happen in a couple of years. It takes sometimes even centuries for somebody to be declared a saint. And to see this happen so fast, and I just said that, Bishop, you and I can look back and say, wow, I think of this every day. And I was just teasing the other day at my parish. I said, St. Titus now is my go-to saint. He's number one on my list now.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. I imagine that going through all that paperwork and all that time, all related to St. Titus Brandsma, I can imagine that you've built a spiritual friendship with that saint now after all the work that you've put in.
Absolutely. And, I just can't really, when you see a miracle, I practiced medicine for 40 years, and I've delivered 5,000 babies in my life, and I've been involved with all kinds of tragedies and cures. Miracles happen every day. They do happen. It's not, but to document them and prove them is another issue, And in fact, I might mention that the bishop asked me again to do another one. There's another priest. He's right now always really lower on the pole. He's just servant of God. Father Vincent Capodanno was a Maryknoll priest from Long Island.
I know his case very well.
Well, there's a patient down here in our diocese who was cured of multiple sclerosis. So the bishop asked me again if we went through the whole process again. There's an opening ceremony, then there's a closing ceremony, and all of our documents go off to Rome by diplomatic courier. It's kind of impressive. So we went through the same thing again. I don't think, but I think Bishop and I won't be alive when he's come. He's definitely a saint. He was a martyr. If you saw his life, there's a movie of his life. He died administering last rites to his fellow soldiers in Vietnam and on the battlefield. And priests and doctors, we kind of can stay back a little bit from the line of fire. And if you've watched MASH over the years, you'll see what they mean by that. But no, Father Capodanno was right out there with his men, and he was shot down. So he's already got. They're deciding if it was martyrdom or if it was really just because of his job as a military chaplain, a soldier.
And there's the new path to sainthood, this oblatio vitae, the laying down of one's life for another.
Right.
I think there's another path for Father Vincent.
Right, and so we do have a medical miracle. So I've done this twice now.
Wonderful. Well, you're the guy to call. We've been talking today with Dr. Anthony Dardano about the case of Father Michael Driscoll related to the miracle that led to the canonization of St. Titus Brandsma. If you would, I'd like to circle back to the miracle itself, some of the medical facts of that case. One of the things when they look at healing miracles as possibilities for canonization miracles, they use this criteria, this Lambertini criteria that was put together by Prospero Lambertini, an Italian cardinal born in the 1600s who went on to be Pope Benedict XIV. And that rule book is still in play today. That's still what they use for these for examining these miracles. And according to this book, it says that it must be a serious condition, not liable to go on its own. It must be an instantaneous, complete, and lasting cure, and there can be no other crisis that relates to reversing that condition. And of course, you can just have the intercession of just one saint, and there can be no medical treatment that relates to the cure. And so I want to ask you about that point as related to Father Michael Driscoll. He underwent major surgery. Doctors removed 84 lymph nodes and a salivary gland. He had 35 days of radiation treatment. But I guess according to your analysis and the doctors in Rome, the medical commission, they would say that all that treatment that he was given was not related to the cure. It didn't affect the cure. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Melanoma, as I said before, it's a disease that eventually kills you. Now there are some better chemotherapies in these days. Melanoma was always what they call radio-resistant and didn't help radiating it. To remove the tumor is one thing. Now it went from his scalp to his neck and to his parotid gland, the salivary gland, and plus he had quite a few lymph nodes positive in his neck. That right there is a fatal diagnosis because you can remove as many lymph nodes as you can see, but there's more. Sure. And the spread is there, and the fact that it went through your bloodstream and spread from your head down to your neck, Lord knows where else it goes. Usually it's not done. Surgery is palliative in those days, and that's why the surgeon, when he operated on him, said the most I can guarantee, most I can give you is a hope of maybe 3 years before it finally comes back and is fatal. So right then and there, to me, I think that's what the Rome accepted is the final thing. We knew this wasn't a cure. Radiation never was any good for it, but it's all they had, so let's give it a shot.
Sure.
It never was any good for a lot of the tumors. And so I think in Rome, on the other hand, they didn't just take your word for it. They do, and it's extensive. I was in constant contact, with the pathologists and the surgeons and the physicians in Rome, they were asking questions and looking at documents and things. They don't just take your word for it. They do the whole thing themselves as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. How often did Rome contact you? How many different doctors were involved? And what did you have to provide to them in order for them to reach this conclusion at the medical commission?
They wanted to see all the scans, of course. There was CAT scans in these days. There wasn't much more. There was MRIs, but there was not this PET scan that they have today for looking for malignancies. But they wanted to see every piece of tissue. They wanted to see all the slides. They wanted to see the reports. They wanted to see the scans. And then wherever they had a question that they wanted more, they would ask for it, and we would send it on. And again, that's where I had a lot of help. The Carmelite order was very helpful in this. The provincial and promulgator for the cause for sainthood, helping me provide this stuff. And then when I was finally finished, I had to produce a huge document. They allowed it in English. It went into Latin after. Of all my findings, I had to summarize the whole findings and why I felt personally that this was a miracle and not just a medical cure. And as I say, they accepted that.
And as we wrap up the interview today, talk a bit about when you received the word from Rome in one form or another, directly or indirectly. When you got the word that Positio Super about the miracle was accepted by Rome, and the miracle was going to lead to his canonization. Talk about how you found out and what your
I found out
experience.
Actually from the Carmelite order, because they notified the superiors of the Carmelite order, and they called us immediately, and we're ecstatic. Father Michael and I are ecstatic because I say we still remain close to today. He's still, I think we're about I just asked him the other day, who's older, me or you? He's a shade older than me. But as I say, we're close friends, and he's forever grateful. He's
Amazing.
Forever grateful and convinced. And, he's also, he does have, I think, a second or third degree relic, I'm not sure, of St. Titus. And he gratefully offers it to people in the area who have, fatal conditions to ask for his intercession.
Amazing.
He's a great supporter of Father Titus. And so am I. And the fact that when Father Titus was dying, he didn't die immediately. They gave him a chance. They said, Father, you're a journalist, you're a priest, and you're an educator. If you will take back your criticism of the Nazis, you can go free. And he refused to do that, so they imprisoned him. And again, they gave him a second chance, and again he refused. And he died by IV injection of hydrochloric acid. You talk about an awful death. And while he was on the table and he was waiting to be injected by the nurse, he looked at her and she had tears in her eyes, knowing that, she didn't want to do this, but being under the regime of the Nazis, she had to. He handed her his rosary beads and he said, "My child, I'm sorry, I feel sorry for you." And he handed her the beads and he died. She was present at his beatification.
Wow.
In Rome. I think that was in 1985, if I recall what year that was. She was present. Amazing. Brings tears to my eyes thinking of that one, how
Absolutely.
this all played out.
Yeah, and this had to be an amazing experience for you, all the work that was put in. And as you mentioned, how you had that connection to Father Michael Driscoll already, and no doubt you're
right.
good friends as a result, and you've developed a spiritual friendship with the Saint Titus Brandsma, whose miracle you have helped push through to Rome. So thank you so much, Dr. Anthony Dardano, for joining us on today's program, for giving us your breakdown of this miracle story and all your work that went into it, and what an exciting thing to be a part of. We thank you so much for joining us on today's program.
I am proud to be here, and thank you very much. And I hope maybe when I make Father Capodanno a saint, we can do this again.
Let's do it again. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for being on the show today.
Thanks.
And that was Dr. Anthony Dardano talking to us about the miracle related to St. Titus Brandsma, the cure for melanoma of Father Michael Driscoll, right here in Florida in the United States. So exciting to have another miracle from the United States that's been recognized by Rome. And that's all the time we have for today's show. If you missed any of this program or want to catch up on past episodes, you can go to EWTN.com/radio, check out the audio archives, or download the free EWTN app. I'd like to thank our guest today, Shaun McAfee, talking to us about his book, All Things Catholic, and Dr. Anthony Dardano for talking to us about the miracle that led to the canonization of St. Titus Brandsma. Check out my series, Explore with the Miracle Hunter, my program on Tre Fontane. I'll be investigating a miraculous encounter at the site where St. Paul was martyred, the Virgin of Revelation's appearance to Bruno Carnacchiola, a rabid anti-Catholic, changed both the man and the church itself. Check that one out on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today on Miracle Hunter, where from claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt. Talk to you next week.